Hello, world. It's Monday, January the 28th, 2019, present time 11:19 p.m. And this is my way. I've just come back into my dorm room following an extended period of time just chatting with folks and being a social animal. I looked at the time, I realized that if I didn't get around to doing this, it wasn't going to happen. In fact, it's already past my bedtime for a weeknight, meaning I'll probably skimp on some other duties to self, just for the sake of getting this out there. Real quick, today was a good day. My manager, I hesitate to call her that. The woman who's leading up the project I'm working on, that I'm weighing in on, if you will, she was in the office today. She's dropped in from Pittsburgh. So I spent maybe an hour with her, just kind of going over what I'd learned so far, figuring out what's next and what else may be worth considering as we continue looking at this thing. Apparently the deliverables were initially slated for the end of this week, but we'll see what can happen. I want to support her as much as possible with this because it's a really exciting project. Significant stuff. I'm excited to have the opportunity to work on this, or weigh in on it, or whatever. It's just feels like a pretty privileged position to be in, especially given I just started. I'm fresh. Came back to school today about 12 o'clock. Got over to my 12:30 class just in time. That class was largely just a lecture today. We were going over this interesting thing that came up was the Boston Consulting Group's matrix. They've got this matrix that looks at market share versus revenue profit. I don't know. It's this really classical 4x4 grid. And you've got these like unknowns, question marks. Then you've got your cash cows, you've got your dogs, and you've got your rising stars. And this was a thing that the Boston Consulting Group really milked in order to get its start. But the professor today was talking about how this no longer holds true. It hasn't held true for some time, apparently. And BCG or somebody else, I think it was BCG themselves, they kind of pushed out some new numbers discussing how things have moved. But they still more or less stick to this idea. Now, one doesn't need to have massive market share in order to enjoy profitability. Things are changing out there. Pretty cool takeaway. Second class, Management of Financial Institutions. We spent most of the class period discussing this assigned reading. I hadn't done the reading ahead of class, so now I'm in class, taking a look at this thing, kind of skimming through it. I didn't bring my laptop, so at the start of the class, the professor's like, Alex, calls me out again. Alex, we're going to start class. Would you put away your phone? And I looked at him and I said, well, I didn't bring my laptop today. And I motioned to the rest of the room. Everybody's got their laptops out. And this is a small class, mind you. It's like 7-8 students. So I didn't bring my laptop today. Is it okay if I take notes using my phone? And he said, okay. He continued, you can also record the class, but I ask that you don't distribute the recordings. So as soon as he said that, I said, oh, that's great. And I thought, why not? I may as well record class sessions. I mean, after all, audio is cheap. it costs next to nothing to store audio data. So I went ahead and recorded the entire session. And moving forward, I think I'll continue to do that. Why not? Other things. Today, I can see. Because I have my contact lenses in. And I got these yesterday afternoon. And something tragic happened this morning. As I was trying to put in this right contact this morning, I was fumbling around with it. I kept thinking, how unfortunate would it be if one of these slipped and fell? And sure enough, it slipped and fell. And for the first few minutes, I kind of hunted around for it. You know, looking through my one eye that I can actually see with. I had the left one in, and I was looking around and scanning everywhere, and I just couldn't find it. So eventually, weighing the continued search cost, figured, you know what, I may as well just grab a fresh one. So I'm down to 2 more contacts for my right eye. Is it 2? Yeah, I want to say it's 2. If it's 1, I'm super fucked. Yeah, it's 2. I've got 2 more days where I can see at the current rate. I may have to suck it up and go and pick up contacts for my right eye on like an emergency basis. It sucks. I did order some for the left eye because it's a lot heavier on my right. Left one I can get by with just regular basic corrective lens. It's quite a bit cheaper. But, you know, it's whatever. Sucks, but it happened. I'm past it. But I'll probably have to suffer the consequences later. That's the thing. It's the thing about these emergency situations that creep up on you. You don't plan for this shit, but when it happens, you gotta deal with the consequences. And sometimes it's not like this. The consequences could keep on echoing for weeks to come. And I'm in the middle of that now. And woe is me, I know. I had to go schedule an appointment, take time off of my weekend, go get my vision checked. I have to suffer the discomfort of wearing daily contact lenses. It's all good. Walked around downtown a bit after classes, chatted with some folks. You know, just bumped a couple of smokes. It was really windy. Got really, really windy and cold. I dipped into a shoe store where I chatted with the guy Chris. I learned he's actually a small business owner too. He works multiple jobs and owns a small business. And when I learned he's a small business owner, I was quite impressed. I thought he was just, working retail. It turns out he's doing quite a bit with his time. I don't envy him. It's really, really stressful on him. And I can see it. Like, I observed that he had these pretty dark rings under his eyes. So, you look like you didn't sleep well. He said, yeah, it's been a while. Anyhow, that's my bit. Let me get this pulled up so we can rock and roll. Today, we're going to be reading about sushi. Oh, before I dive into this, there's one more interesting note. Went down to a local print shop, the one I'd looked at before, about sourcing some stickers. And I got a quote. The guy there was very, very helpful. He educated me a little bit on 2 things. t-shirt blanks, and stickers. And on the note of t-shirt blanks, he shared with me how American Apparel had died momentarily. Shed some lights on some remarks that somebody made. Some rando. So I walked away a little wiser. Anyways, I'm ready to get started. The Story of Sushi by Trevor Corson. The Story of Sushi from 2007 takes a closer look at the classic Japanese dish that has taken the Western world by storm. Discover the secrets behind both the traditional and more modern ingredients of sushi, and find out what kind of rituals and techniques are used to make the perfect nigiri. Who should read this? Sushi skeptics wondering what's so great about tiny portions of rice and fish. Foodies who want to know what makes the best sushi. And chefs and restaurateurs wishing to add sushi to their menu. Who wrote the book? Trevor Corson is a writer and philosopher. He studied philosophy in China and lived in Buddhist temples in Japan, and also spent time on commercial fishing boats off the coast of Maine. He is a frequent contributor to the New York Times. His other books include The Secret Life of Lobsters. What's in it for me? Become a sushi connoisseur. 20 years ago, sushi was a novelty in most places outside Japan. Since then, it has become a takeaway staple, served in fashionable restaurants and sold pre-packed in supermarkets. But despite its ubiquity, most of us know fairly little about it. Most of us think sushi is all rice, seaweed, and of course raw fish. But what about all the vegetarian sushi options out there? Here, we will delve into the story of sushi, how it is made, and its cultural significance. When we're done, you will be a sushi connoisseur. In these blinks, you'll find out why eating sushi with chopsticks is wrong, how dipping any rice in soy sauce is frowned upon in Japan, and all the tips and pointers you need to order and eat sushi like a pro. In Japan, sushi is a source of health and well-being, and this outlook has spread to other cultures. For many kids, eating healthy foods like broccoli or spinach is a kind of torture. You probably remember being told to finish your vegetables, but unless you grew up in Japan, you were probably never admonished for failing to finish your sushi. In Japan, sushi has an enduring reputation as a source of strength and good health for adults and children alike. In fact, there's a famous Japanese children's story written by the poet Kanoko Okamoto in 1939 that's simply called Sushi. The story centers on a small boy who is such a picky eater that he becomes weak and sickly. So, his mother sits down with him to prepare some special sushi to get her child eating. She makes sure her boy sees how clean her hands are, and then begins the delicate process of rolling the sushi and preparing it with special nutritious toppings. After seeing how much love and care his mother puts into the food, he agrees to eat. By the end of the story, the boy has learned to love food. He grows up healthy and strong and becomes a sushi chef. Like his mother, he takes care to prepare the perfect sushi for each customer. Today, this appreciation of sushi's unique qualities has reached far beyond Japan. Californian soccer player Kate Murray discovered the benefits of sushi as a young adult in the early 2000s. After suffering a sports injury, Murray had to give up exercise, which led to illness and kidney disease. To make matters worse, Murray spiraled into depression and began eating only fast food. Fortunately, a friend introduced her to sushi. Murray immediately fell in love with the food, and her metabolism kicked right back into gear. Part of Murray's appreciation came from the friendly and attentive sushi chefs who created the perfect roll for every customer. In fact, Murray decided to become a sushi chef herself, and, as we'll see, there were many more sushi secrets she unlocked. There are common misunderstandings about what sushi means and how it should be eaten. When you think about the word sushi, you probably associate it with fish, but the word actually means something else entirely. In Japanese, sushi refers to the rice and the ancient way the dish was consumed. Sushi specifies a unique type of round-grained rice that is seasoned with salt, sugar, and rice vinegar. Making sushi rice is such a special skill that traditional Japanese sushi chefs are trained in the process for 2 years before they move on to another ingredient. The rice is so important that sushi restaurants used to have a full-time specialist whose only job was to prepare it. Interestingly enough, when you go back to the earliest version of sushi, the rice played a completely different role. After the rice was cooked, it was left to ferment in alcohol so that it could act as a preservative for the fish. Naturally, in this version, the putrid rice was disposed of before the fish was consumed. Times changed, however, and as sushi spread to the West, habits formed that corrupted the traditional enjoyment of sushi. For example, in many of today's sushi bars, you find people smothering their sushi rolls in a mixture of wasabi and soy sauce, which completely ruins the delicate flavors. This is particularly blasphemous, since sushi is about appreciating the flavors prepared by the chef, not just the salty soy sauce and spicy Japanese horseradish. Another sushi faux pas is to devour all the gari, or pickled ginger, before you even eat your first roll. Gari is intended as a palate cleanser, to be eaten between the different sushi rolls to help prevent lingering flavors from mixing. However, if you must dunk your sushi roll into soy sauce, there is a proper way to do it. Avoid the common mistake of dunking the rice, and make sure you only dip the top layer of fish into the soy sauce. Sushi chefs have a special technique to create light and airy nigiri. Japanese sushi chefs can spend a lifetime mastering the art of handcrafting the perfect nigiri, the name given to a portion of rice with different toppings. But there are some general rules that all chefs follow to achieve the perfect nigiri. A primary goal is to make the sushi roll light and airy by packing the rice together in a ritualized process. This starts with the sushi chef taking a handful of rice into his right hand and shaping it into a cylinder. With his left hand, he flips a piece of fish into his open palm and then curls the left hand into the shape of a U so that the cylinder of rice can be lightly placed onto the fish. The chef then gently squeezes the rice into a triangular shape, then back into a cylinder. This important process allows air to enter the nigiri, preventing the sushi roll from being too densely packed. A good sushi roll should be firm enough to not fall apart, but loose enough to easily dissolve in one's mouth. There are even scientific studies of the perfect nigiri. MRI scans of them show that the best sushi rolls do indeed contain more air than the inferior ones. In the next step of the process, the sushi roll, now topped by the slice of fish, is turned over into the left hand, where it is pinched into a more rectangular shape. Finally, the left hand once again forms a U shape, so that the chef can lightly press down on the fish to remove any remaining air separating the fish from the rice. This way, he can be sure that the fish will stay on the roll. During the process, the chef is handling the chilled fish just long enough to slightly warm it up, so that it can be served at body temperature, the ideal condition for sushi. Different lineages of chefs create different shapes of nigiri. The most common shape is arched slightly, like a dome. Shrimp is a recent addition to sushi menus, but there are concerns about using the curious creatures. One of the most popular items at your local sushi restaurant is likely to be a nigiri topped with shrimp, especially if you live in the United States. But this is a relatively recent addition to the sushi menu. Shrimp only joined the list of popular toppings after World War II, when the Tokyo way of making nigiri spread throughout the West. By the time it arrived in the United States, shrimp was a common delicacy, and chefs were quick to start using the ingredient. Nowadays, most sushi menus feature one of two variations on shrimp. They're either raw and transparent, or cooked to a pink and white color, which is the more popular method in America. Everyone knows how tasty fresh shrimp is, but less is known about the journey a shrimp takes before it arrives on your plate. Most curious is the Pandalus borealis, a shrimp that spends the first 2 years of its life as a sexually active bachelor before transforming into a female, turning its testes into ovaries and then mating with young males. But of more concern are the ethical issues surrounding shrimp's role in the world of sushi. The first issue stems from the fact that shrimp begin to decompose immediately after they die, due to certain enzymes contained in the crustacean. Therefore, sushi chefs need to keep the shrimp alive for as long as possible, which leads to the practice of ripping the tails off of live shrimp just prior to preparation. Equally concerning are the environmentally hazardous methods surrounding shrimp fishing and farming. Trawling is a typical shrimp fishing method that involves dragging huge nets through the ocean that often trap and kill a variety of other species, including endangered ones, such as sea turtles. And shrimp farming isn't much better. Indeed, millions of acres of invaluable mangrove habitat have been destroyed so that the coastal lands could be repurposed as farms. People use different names to describe the maturity of a fish, but everyone agrees. Wild fish make the best sushi. Have you ever found yourself in a sushi restaurant, staring uncomprehendingly at all the unfamiliar ingredients on the menu? If so, you're not alone. Deciphering the details of a sushi menu is an art form all its own. After all, it's not exactly common knowledge that Japanese refer to yellow-tail tuna as ascending fish, due to the progression of flavor changes that happen in the different stages of the fish's development. This means that young yellowtail caught heading north through the Pacific Ocean will appear as inada on the menu, and this fish has a distinctly different taste than buri, yellowtail that has matured and is caught during its return south to lay eggs. To make matters more confusing, different terms will be used in different parts of Japan. In Tokyo, for instance, people recognize 5 stages of development for the yellowtail with a mostly different set of names than in Kyoto, where they recognize 7 stages. So, according to the Tokyo school, you have Mojako, which measures 1 to 2 inches, Wakashi, 2 to 6 inches, Inada, 6 to 16 inches, Warasa, 16 inches to 2 feet, and finally, the fully mature buri. But there is one thing that most sushi lovers do agree on. The best sushi comes from wild fish, not farmed. While farmed yellowtail has been popular in the United States since the 1970s for its tender and buttery texture, the meat isn't as flavorful as wild yellowtail. Furthermore, the farmed variety can contain 30% fat, which goes against the famously low-fat Japanese diet. Apart from flavor, other problems with farming stem from the fact that yellowtails of different stages are routinely kept together. This means that the smaller fish, especially the mojako, get eaten by the larger fish, leaving farmers without much variety. But for sushi masters, there's simply no comparing the flavor you get from fish that have swum long distances and matured in the wild. Salmon eggs are a relatively new addition to sushi, and they have a lengthy and complex preparation process. The world of sushi isn't restricted to just raw fish and rice. If you've recently been to a sushi restaurant, you know that fish eggs have also found their way onto nigiri. Even though they're a relatively recent addition to sushi menus, salmon eggs have been part of the human diet for thousands of years. Japanese have been eating fish eggs for millennia. In the 19th century, the Russians popularized eating salmon eggs as caviar. Before this, in the United States, salmon eggs were primarily used as fish bait. Nowadays, salmon eggs are simultaneously wildly popular and quite rare. On the Russian peninsula of Kamchatka, there's a thriving $1 billion black market for caviar. In this area, which isn't far from the northern shores of Japan, even the local bears compete for the salty treats by catching the female fishes, sucking out all the eggs and tossing the bodies aside. But when it comes to sushi, It wasn't until after World War II that the Tokyo chefs came up with the idea to add fish eggs as an exciting new ingredient. Even though it might sound like a simple idea, preparing salmon eggs for sushi is a complex and time-consuming process. First, the eggs are rinsed in water to remove any sticky residue. Then they are lowered into a bowl of salt water, which loosens the membranes enough for them to be removed. After that, the eggs are placed in brine, where they sit and absorb the salt. This strengthens the egg shells, which improves their texture and helps produce tasty amino acids in the eggs. Finally, the eggs are left to soak for 2 to 3 days in a marinade of soy sauce, sake, mirin, a Japanese rice wine, and dashi, a fish broth. Afterward, they're strained and ready to serve. Preparing sushi involves rituals and techniques that are not unlike the showmanship of kung fu. It's no secret that Japanese culture places great value on ritual and tradition, and this certainly extends to sushi. For the Japanese, making sushi is as much about the rituals of food preparation as it is about flavor. Sushi master Toshi Sugiura, the founder of the California Sushi Academy in Los Angeles, teaches his students that making sushi is a spiritual endeavor, much like practicing kung fu. He demonstrates this by picking up some rice and covering it in his palm, like a magician, making a white mouse disappear. And then, after a flurry of rapid movements that lasts less than 10 seconds, he opens his hand to reveal a perfect nigiri sitting on his palm. This association between the traditions of sushi and kung fu is common in Japan. There are even sushi-themed Japanese comic books, like the acclaimed sushi chef Kirara's Job, where chefs compete and develop their own style of forming nigiri. These styles come with kung fu-like names, such as Flying Crow, Stone Pagoda, or Dragon in the Sky. And when you see a sushi master at work, it's hard not to notice the kung fu connection. When former athlete Kate Murray was studying at the California Sushi Academy, her instructor, Toshi, taught her to approach sushi like a martial artist. When chopping, it's normal to stand at the board with squared hips, but Toshi steps back with his right foot and stands at a 45-degree angle to the chopping board, as if he's about to perform a martial arts maneuver. And then Toshi lets loose an aggressive shout before chopping a radish so fast and with such force that his knife sounds like a machine gun firing. Toshi explained that this kind of chopping power doesn't just come from his hands. It must come from the proper alignment of the entire body. The students tried to follow the sushi master's lead, though many ended up cutting themselves. It just goes to show, being a sushi master takes a lifetime of practice. Final summary. The key message in this book. Sushi is much more than raw fish. This delicate rice-based dish has a 1,000-year-long tradition as one of Japan's healthiest foods. While the practice of preparing sushi is steeped in tradition and rituals, it is a dish that continues to evolve, adding new ingredients like shrimp and caviar. Actionable advice. Put down the chopsticks. Traditionally, sushi is always eaten with the hands. This method is easier, and you will avoid looking like a clueless tourist in your next sushi bar. Suggested further reading. Cod by Mark Kurlansky. Cod from 1997 charts the rise and fall of the codfish. A major commodity in the European market during the discovery of the New World, cod went on to cause national conflicts and, due to overfishing, eventually became vulnerable to extinction. Find out how this fish changed the world, only to end up on the verge of oblivion. Oh, that was pretty fast. Man. Oops, there we go. Blue Balls of Fury, I don't know if you're still here, but hey, welcome back. Man, my eyes are really tired. I don't think I can stay up too much longer. Like, it's just that after an entire day's wear, as I get kind of sleepy, I can feel the contacts more and more. Hey, you are here. So I've got to bail before long. Like, I'm just gonna get through this and then see if there's anything I'm about to miss out on. No problem, man. See if there's anything I'm about to miss out on and just bail. Because it's like, I got work tomorrow too. Like I said, it's been past my bedtime. I got a little carried away just chatting with these youngins. I'm trying to impress upon them something, but I think that part of the problem, it's like with broadcast, right? I need to strike the right balance. If I'm too open with my time, people will undervalue it. They'll be like, oh, this guy's always around. He's always available for me. I need to make myself scarce. Like, if I spend too long over here, what happens? It's like, oh, I expect you here. I expect you here, and you're always going to be here because that's just what you do. I mean, that's just, it's part of who you are, you know. So I'm kind of, I guess we'll call this like a period where you're keeping on the training wheels. Gotta keep on looking out for myself, man. Otherwise the time goes fast. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be left just holding my cock in hand. It's not a good position to be in. I've been there too many times. Way too many. Oops. Yeah. You get it, man. And thank you for saying hi. I'm glad to know you're still alive, that you're out there. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, things are different now, man. Things are getting a little different. They're changing. And I'm happy for it. No, you're fine. Get you some rest. Like, if you're feeling sleepy like I am, then definitely get you some rest. Don't stay up past your bedtime. I don't need to be doing either. I just want to make sure nothing falls off of my system. Because when things fall off, I get salty. And right now, it's still just me. From anything social. I hear you. I guess this is my... It's, you know what's weird? It's kind of weird. Like, quite weird. For me, this broadcasting, being here in front of you, this was my... like a good part of my socialization for most of my days. I would rarely go out. I'd rarely go see people. And now I'm very much immersed in the world. Come on. I knew this was gonna happen, right? It's no surprise. But at the same time, it still feels a little strange. Like, really drastic change. Going from 0 to 60. That's all good. In fact, I'm happy for it. I Like, it's better to be able to converse with people that I can just reach out and touch. It's a very powerful thing. But just being able to reach out and touch somebody. Anyways, I saved the one piece from falling off. I've got a few days until the next one falls off, but once it's coming. I'm trying not to overwork myself on this front. Just do the bare minimum necessary to keep on top of it, because things are. Oh shit! I should actually take a look at one more thing before I congratulate myself and step away from this. Almost midnight, 5 minutes still. Before I do that, let me make sure I'm not missing something important. I think I actually have a number of sequences that I was wrong. 0. Perfect. Less work for me. Alright, so that's it. Shit, kept it super tight today. Like, what are we at? An uptime of, fuck, I don't even know. It's been 37 minutes. 37 minutes, man. It's like a new record. Yeah. I hope you're doing well out there. I know things, they may feel like they're moving kind of slowly at this point. It feels that way for me too. There's so much that I want to do and that I will be spinning up. It's just a matter of finding time for all those little things. The important but not urgent. Getting better one day at a time. This young guy I was talking with, Jean, from Brazil, he was saying to me, talking about destiny and predetermination and probabilities. I just asked him one thing. Alright, say that's all true. Does it help you or hurt you to believe it? I think at the end of the day, that's... I'm not going to say it's the only important question, but it's definitely an important question to ask. Whenever you hold any belief to be true, does it help you or hurt you? Anyways, we've reached the end. Thank you. Catch you again soon. For now, take care. Bye-bye.